My bells are ringing. Well, well, well. My soul is singing. Well, well. I am the bell ringer. I am the praise singer. I am the truth weller. I am the storyteller. Well, oh, well, well. It's storytelling time. In celebration of Juneteenth, we come together. Now, before I continue, I ask permission from the elders of the Griot circle to speak. Oh, blessed elders, do I have your permission to continue? Asante sana, asante sana. I feel your affirmation. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. We come together on this Juneteenth to celebrate, for we are children. We are babies of ancestors who survived the Middle Passage, also known as the Atlantic enslavement trade. Our ancestors survived so we can survive. Let us have a moment of silence in praise, in thanks to Sante Sana, giving thanks, recognition, remembrance to the Almighty Creator, the Maker and Shaper of all things. A moment of silence, please. A moment of silence for the indigenous people of the land, the indigenous people of this place we call Maryland, and this town we call Baltimore. A moment of silence for these stolen lands that were labored by our people, labored by stolen people. A moment of silence, please. Ashe, ashe, we remember, we respect, and we recognize. We remember, we reclaim, we recall the ancestors' names. A moment of silence for all the ancestors of the Griot circle. A moment of silence for Mama Nana, our ancestral Queen Mother, Mary Carter Smith. Ashe, 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 ashe. Let us remember those within our own families, our loved ones that we have lost this year. Ashe, 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 ashe. Let us call out now. Call out the name of the ancestor you want to remember. Call their names. Call their names. We remember, we reclaim, we recall the ancestors' names. Asante Sana, Asante Sana. Peace, hope, and love be with all of you. The winds of God have spoken. May the circle of love be unbroken.
Steal away, we hasn't got long to stay here. Good afternoon to you. Allows me to introduce myself to you. My name be Hyatt Ross Tubman Davis, and I was here to tell you a little bit about my life. See, I was born about 1820, 1822, in a dark time in this country history, where people that look like me, colored folks, were stolen away from a continent across the big waters and brought here just to be kept in chains. We was enslaved, we was sold, we was beaten, worked hard from can to can. That means from the time you can't see your hand in front of you till it's so dark you can't. And I, Had Tubman, was kept in bondage. Now, when I was born and I belonged to Mr. Edward Brodus on the Brodus plantation where my mama Harriet Green lived. My daddy at that time belonged to Mr. Thompson and he lived on the Thompson plantation. Later on, my daddy was able to purchase his freedom, and long time after that, he actually purchased my mama freedom too. Well, when I was born, my name wasn't Harriet Tubman, no sir. My name was Araminta Ross. I say, Daddy, what Araminta mean? He said, Araminta is a name that come from a place across the big water. It mean protector. I say, Daddy, how I gonna protect anybody? He said, when I tells you these things like how to read the stars and what you can eat and can't eat in the woods, you take all them things, put them in your spirit place so you can take it out later. I was telling you this, children, when you learn things when you little, you members them and put them in your spirit place because you're going to need them when you grows up. Now, when I was a little girl, all I wore was a toe gown, which is a burlap sack. And the children didn't have to work, almost. But I tell you this, one day Mr. Brodus come up and tell me he was going to loan me out. You say, Aunt Harriet, how you loan out a person? That's when a man would own slave, rent his slaves out to somebody what don't. And he get paid all the money. You does the work, he get paid the money. Mr. Brodus powerful mean. He sold away some of my sisters, Leah, Soph, and Mariah, when they was just little. And my mama cried and cried, but he done it anyway. Then me, he loaned out. He rented me to the cooks, where I almost caught pneumonia and died because I was walking around in the swamp with just my toe gown on. Then he rent me out to this mean white lady who beat me just because I let her baby cry. I was just a baby myself, only about 7, 8 years old. My teeth was missing. That's how come they knowed how old I was. Well, after all of that, I decided I'm going to work hard on the plantation so he don't rent me out no more. And I worked hard in the fields with the boys and the men, and I grew strong. Then one time when I was only about 12 years old, we were shucking corn, having a shucking corn contest between Mr. Barrett Darkey and Mr. Brodus Darkey. And I saw an old boy, he was trying to run away. I was curious like any child gonna be, so I follows him all the way about a mile to the Bucktown store. And when he went in that front door and out the back, the overseer said to me, Minty, stop it. And I remember my daddy say my name mean protector. And I reach in that spirit place and I kept blocking the door. The overseer gets so mad with me. He pick up a lead weight and he throwed it across the room and it hit me in my head, cracked my skull open. I almost died again, but my mama, who was a healer, nursed me back to health. But from that point on, two things happened. When I was in that coma, that's when you can't wake up because you're so sick and your body healing yourself. The good Lord started talking to me. And he revealed to me that I was going to be free. The other thing that happened from that point on was I had headaches and sleeping sickness and I was always sickly. Well, I decided that I was going to be free. And I had reasoned it out in my mind that there was two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I was going to have the other. For no man was going to take me alive. I would fight for my freedom with my last breath. When it was time for me to go, only the good Lord himself would take me. And I growed up and Even though we enslaved, we fall in love, and I married a man whose name was John Tubman. And when you get married, you can't have a child named like Minty. That when I changed my name to Harriet. I want to be called a name like my mama. See, children, when you're looking to be somebody famous and you want to take a new name, and you need not look any further than across the dinner table to your parents that put food in your mouth and clothes on your back. They the people you should be like. Well, even after I was married to a free man, I knowed I wanted to be free. See, Mr. Brodus had died, and Miss Elijah, his wife, was selling off his slaves, and I thought me and my brothers was going to be sold off. So I planned to run away, but my brothers got scared and dragged me back. Mr. Tubman didn't want to go, my brothers didn't want to go, so I, Harriet Tubman, ran out by myself, enslaved, little, dark, can't read nor write, always sick, but I decided that I wasn't going to let nothing stop me, and I got my freedom. I went to Philadelphia, and that's where I become a part of the Underground Railroad. Tain't a train, tain't underground. It's a secret. A colored folk, white folk, free folk that made sure that they would keep going back, and free folks who was enslaved. I went back 13 times, and I freed all of my sisters and brothers and my parents, except my big sister Rachel, who had died before I could get her. Sometimes I had to take folk all the way up to Canada where it was cold. Anybody say they want to go back, I say, you be free or die. After Civil War break out, that's when the states from up north wanted to free them slaves, and the states from the south wanted to keep them darkies. Well, we fought, and I fought alongside the soldiers in the Union Army. After a while, the Civil War over, the slaves was free, but there was so much fighting to do. I fought for women to get the right to vote. I used to bring people into my house in Auburn, New York, old people, young people, and I took care of them. Remembers this, my children. It ain't about how much you have in life that make you special in the eyes of the Lord. You special when you do things to help other people. I ain't never had nothing, but I had in my heart the desire to help other people. And that's what Harriet Ross Tubman Davis leaves with you today. And I thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Langston Hughes. And for all of you who may not know, I was one of the great Negro writers back during the Harlem Renaissance between the mid-1920s through the mid-1930s. Now, I was born 1902 in Joplin, Missouri. My parents divorced, and I was sent to live with my grandmother in the Midwest. I remember as a child always loving to read books and writing poetry. In fact, in high school, I was recognized as an up-and-coming poet. Later, I moved to Mexico to live with my father. That wasn't a great idea. You see, my father was a businessman with materialistic values, and he felt that just writing about anything was just a waste of time. So then I moved to D.C., where I became a busboy and I continued my writing. However, it wasn't until around 1921 when I moved to New York City, Harlem to be exact. That's when I really developed my skill as a great writer. Harlem. That was a place that was just full of dreams. Some dreams realized and some dreams deferred. A dream deferred. What is a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode. That was Harlem, inspirational. I loved Harlem, but I also loved to travel throughout the states, and I loved to travel around the world, lived on just about every continent, and every time writing down those experiences and creating poems. This next poem has begun to be known as my signature poem, and it's called "The Negro Speaks of Rivers." I've known rivers. I've known rivers as ancient as the world, older than the flow of human blood through human veins. My soul runs deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when the dawn was young. I built my hut by the Congo, and it lured me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and built the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusty rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Yes, I love to travel and write about my experiences. You know, one thought comes to mind, and that was when I went to Baltimore. I went to Baltimore to see the arena players put on my production of Simply Heavenly. Great production. And I also remember this lovely lady that I met there. She was an actress. She was a teacher, she was a poet, and a wonderful, wonderful storyteller. And her name was Mary Carter Smith. I remember that. And we kept correspondence for a long period of time, writing each other postcards and letters. But through it all, I just had to get back to Harlem. See, Harlem was where the people was. I mean, they inspired me. I just loved their mannerisms, the way they walked, the way they talked, their dress, the way they sang, the music. And then I just wrote about all the aspects of living in Harlem. And I wrote about the murders in the streets, the funerals. I wrote about the jazz singers in the nightclubs and those gospel singers in those storefront churches on Sunday morning. And everybody knew how to get to Harlem, because all you had to do was take the A train. And oh yeah, once you took the A train, everything opened up to you. It inspired me to write this next poem that I called The Ballad of the Landlord. Landlord, landlord, my roof done sprung a leak. Don't you remember I told you about that way last week? $10 you say I owe you. $10 you say is due. Well, that's $10 you ain't gonna see till you fix my house up new. What? So you gonna get eviction orders? Count off my heat? You say you gonna throw my furniture out in the street? You talking high and mighty. Talk on till your talk is true. Because you ain't going to be able to say a word once I lay my fist on you. Police, police, come and get this man. He trying to ruin the government and overturn the land. Copper's whistle, siren bell, arrest, precinct station, iron cell. Headlines in press. Man threatens landlord. Tenant held, no bail. Judge gives Negro 90 days in the county jail. That was Harlem. There was always something going on in Harlem. I mean, bad things sometimes, but mostly good things. And see, I came through at a time when I was surrounded by all of these great, prolific Negro writers. Sadly to say, some of them disappeared, after 1930. But I continue to write. I continue to write about the Negro awareness and the Negro consciousness. Always a poem. I too sing America. I am the darker brother that they send to eat in the kitchen when company comes. I laugh, I eat well, and I grow strong. Tomorrow, I will sit at the table when company comes, and no one will dare say to me, then eat in the kitchen, for they'll be ashamed and see how beautiful I am. Yes, I too am America. Yeah. I continue to write and I continue to dream that one day things would get better. And not just for me, but for all of my Negro brethren. And I continue to pray. I pray that one day our dream would not be deferred, but would be realized by everyone and passed on from generation to generation. We too need to keep that dream, and we need to keep that struggle for freedom alive. Thank you for listening, and may God bless.
Have you ever wondered who wrote the song, Straighten Up and Fly Right? Well, it was written by Nat King Cole. He was inspired by a sermon that his father preached in their church. The story goes like this. On a very hot summer day, there was an old buzzard flying around, looking for something to eat. He had been flying a long time and hadn't found a thing. And then suddenly that sharp eye saw a rabbit down in the grass trying to get cool. So he flew down and sat beside the rabbit. And he said, "Good afternoon." He was all friendly. "How are you feeling today?" And the little rabbit said, "Well, I'm just so hot. I just don't know what to do. I just wish I could find someplace cool to rest." And that old buzzard said to the rabbit, "Well, it's cool where I come from. Why don't you take a ride with me?" And the little rabbit didn't know what to think of that. Those little floppy ears perked up, and the rabbit looked at the buzzard. Well, buzzard did look cool, and he did look comfortable. But that little rabbit said to the buzzard, "Now, from what I know, and from what I've been told, it's hotter up there close to the sun." Well, that old cunning buzzard had an answer for everything. And finally, he convinced that little rabbit to take that ride. Rabbit gets on its back, and up they fly, flying around in the sky. By the time he thinks the rabbit is all cool and comfortable, he makes a dive straight down to the earth and then zooms back up, high speed. That poor little rabbit falls off his back, and he has rabbit for lunch. Now, I tell you, what I've heard, rabbit is pretty good eating for folk that like it. Now, on the next day, old buzzard was looking for food, and he's flying all around, just flying and flying and flying, and he saw a little squirrel down on the ground. Little squirrel gathering his nuts, just jetting back and forth, and trying to keep cool too. So the buzzard zooms down and sits beside the squirrel. Now he was a real gentleman. "Good afternoon, sir. How are you feeling today?" And the little squirrel says, "Well, I'm so hot, I just don't know what to do." And the squirrel was just fanning and just trying to get cool. That buzzard said, "Well, it's cool where I come from. Why don't you take a ride with me?" And the squirrel says, "Okay," and jumps on the buzzard's back, and up they go, flying, just flying, his wide, massive wings just flying. About time he thinks that squirrel is cool, zoom down to the ground and back up. And that poor little squirrel falls off his back. He has squirrel for dinner. Now, I want you to know in the meantime, there was a little monkey up in the trees watching everything that old buzzard did. He watched him play those tricks on that squirrel, and he watched him the day before when he played the trick on that rabbit. He knew that buzzard would be back the next day, so he was watching and waiting for him. Yeah, buzzard had to find food, so the next day he was out flying. Little monkey see him, and he gets all out in the open and want to make sure the buzzard sees him. Buzzard does, and buzzard zooms down and sits beside the monkey. "Good afternoon, sir. How you feeling today?" And the monkey says, "Oh, I'm just so hot." And that monkey just lays it on and fanning and carrying on. That's all that buzzard wanted to see. So the buzzard says, "Well, it's cool where I come from. Why don't you take a ride with me?" And the monkey says, "Okay," and gets on his back. Up they go, flying. By the time he thinks that monkey is cool, he tries that power dive. He starts down, and that you won't believe what happens next. That monkey takes his tail and wraps it around that buzzard's neck, and the buzzard hollers, "Ah, ah, 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 you choking me." That monkey say to that buzzard, "Well, straighten up and fly right. You won't have no monkey for dinner tonight." Now, I tell you, I can't sing like Nat King Cole, and I wouldn't even try, but I do have the lyrics to his song, and it goes like this. The buzzard took the monkey for a ride in the air. The monkey thought that everything was on the square. The buzzard tried to throw the monkey off his back. The monkey grabbed his neck and said, "Now listen, Jack, straighten up and fly right. 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 A cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top." Now ain't no sense in diving. What's the use of your jiving? Just straighten up and fly right. Now that buzzard told that monkey, "You're choking me. Release your hold and I'll set you free." Well, that monkey looked that buzzard dead in the eye and said, "Your story's touching, but it sounds like a lie. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Oh, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top." Now I say, don't try to trick me. You just keep on flying until I tell you to stop. And if you don't, I'll give you a bop. So cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Now that monkey is free, free, free. Flippity flap, That's the end of that.
You know, if you're gonna celebrate something like Juneteenth, well, you got to have a gathering. You gather at Emancipation Park in Houston, for instance, and you want to have food. Uncle Bobby's barbecue, Susie's rolls. Susie always makes rolls. And a cake. If you can, a cake from Miss Glenda Atkinson. She makes some wonderful cake. And what you're gonna do is have a cakewalk. A cakewalk's kind of a competition. You have people who dance in couples until you separate them until you get one couple. And whoever is that one couple takes the cake. Now, my grandmother used to say that I took the cake. And I wonder about that. I never knew if it was good or bad, because she'd say, you take the cake, when I covered myself in red paint from the head all the way down to my feet. Well, she said, you take the cake when I'd recite a poem, and all the aunties would say, oh, you're a wonderful speaker. You're going to be a preacher when you grow up. I didn't know. But she'd always say you take the cake. And I found out that's because that's the prize in the cake walk. A cake. You have couples, and everybody get out on the floor in the middle of the yard, and everybody dance. Come on. Get on up, dance a little bit, move yourself about some. That's it. But go ahead on with your bad self. You take the cake. 1963. This was the year of the Children's Crusade in May of that year. Who were the children? These were children of elementary and high school ages. Why were they in the streets? Because they were tired of not being treated as full citizens in these United States. So in Birmingham, Alabama, on those city streets, these youngsters were parading and chanting that they wanted their freedoms. They wanted to be treated as full citizens, not second class. So they were marching and singing and protesting the way that things were at that time. Why were they out there with themselves? Their mothers must have been frantic at home, but they did allow them to go because they thought it was going to be a nice, peaceful thing. Not so for the authorities. They went out and brutalized those children with water hoses from the fire department. Can you imagine that? Being hit in the back by the force of water from a fireman's hose, knocked them to the ground. But that was not the worst. They also had canine dogs that they would sick on the children. You would see pictures of them ripping the clothes from the people. Young boys being brutalized in that manner just because they wanted to be recognized as full citizens in these United States. 1963. That was an important year to me as well. It was the year I graduated from college that May. So I had been on those lines. Remember the sit-ins at all the restaurants, Woolworths, all those places? We did that out of Norfolk State. These youngsters were exercising their rights as well. The right to protest, which is a true American right. And yet they were being brutalized by the very authorities who should have been protecting them. Maddie Harris was so outraged at the sight of this young man being attacked by a dog that she went out and grabbed him to try to pull him away. What did the policemen do? They grabbed her as well, took her and imprisoned her for 8 days. She was in with a number of other youngsters who were also imprisoned. No mattresses, hardly any food. 8 days, 8 days. That October, I received my draft notice. Imagine that. In a country that would not allow me to be a citizen full-heartedly, would send me to fight their wars. And the Vietnam War was one of the worst, because it was not one in which we should have been involved. So what do? We support the children. We support ourselves. We join the lines. We protest. And we demand that we be recognized as full citizens. We're fighting that battle today, all over again. Seemingly, it never ends. Do your part. Protest. Write letters. Whatever you're able to do, let the world know that you want to be recognized as a full citizen here in these United States, along with those children in 1963 in the Children's Crusade.